in a town called Hayden, Arizona. The middle of the housing market, not the bottom, the middle, is $37,400. Read that again. Half of every house in that town is worth less than a used pickup truck. And right now, retirees from Phoenix and Tucson are showing up with cashier's checks, buying these places sight unseen, sometimes in a single afternoon. The people who grew up there, who buried family members because of what the smelter put in the air, they're watching strangers walk off with their hometown for pocket change. And so listen, if you find this kind of forgotten America as strange and magnetic as I do, hit subscribe, because I'm mapping every single one of these towns, and there are more of them than you think. Number 7, Duncan. Duncan sits right on the New Mexico line in Kearny County, the only county in Arizona where households spend less than 8% of their income on housing. 8%. In Phoenix, people are paying 40. So yeah, the math is broken out here, and retirees figured it out before the rest of the country did. Duncan was built in the 1880s by Mormon farming families who showed up looking for irrigable land along the Gila River. It became a supply town for the copper mines up at Clifton and Morenci, then a shipping point for cattle and cotton. It never had a real boom. The population's been parked between 700 and 1,000 for over 100 years. What killed it wasn't a single moment. It was a slow bleed. Farms got consolidated. Small businesses on Highway 70 closed up. And then the river itself turned on the town. Catastrophic floods in '83 and '06 wiped out homes and businesses outright. Today, there's a single grocery store, a public school, and a strange little jewel called the Simpson Hotel, a 1914 inn that a woman named Sandy Anderson has been quietly running as a birding lodge for over 20 years. Real estate? Land parcels under 20 grand. Modest frame homes and mobile on-land combos floating somewhere between 50 and 80,000. Every so often, a fixer pops up under 40. Here's the thing nobody mentions in the listings. At dawn, when the sandhill cranes lift off the river, you can hear them from the middle of Main Street. That's the loudest sound the town makes some mornings. A whole town that's quieter than a flock of birds. Honestly, I get the appeal, but Duncan is the soft entry. The water's still here. The town still works. Wait until we get to the towns that don't. Number 6, Kearny. Kearny is a town that shouldn't exist, technically. It was built from nothing in 1958 by Kennecott Copper. Not because they wanted to start a town, but because they had to. The original mining camps of Ray and Sonora were getting swallowed alive by the expanding open pit. The company had to put those people somewhere, so they drew a grid in the desert, dropped in identical pastel ranch homes, threw up a hospital and a pool, and that was Kearny. For a while, it worked. Population peaked around 2,500 in the 70s during the copper boom. Then mechanization came for the mine. The 80s copper bust came for the workforce. And now the Ray mine, still operating, still owned by Asarco, runs on a fraction of the labor it used to. The current population sits at about 1,741. Median list price right now? Around 177 grand. But that number lies. Pull up Realtor. Come on any given Tuesday and you'll find homes under 50,000. Small 2-bedroom bungalows, mobiles on lots, the occasional duplex. And here's what's making it worse. The town is in a documented water crisis right now. Drought plus mine dewatering equals a tap that doesn't always run. Here's the part that gets me. Kearny is a 1958 American suburb frozen in amber. Same streetlights, same carports, same playground equipment your grandmother probably remembers. But the town it was built to replace, the original Ray, doesn't exist on Earth anymore. It's a 100-foot deep hole you can see from the highway. Kearny is a ghost of a ghost, a replacement town for a place that was erased. And the retirees moving in? Most of them don't know that. They just see a cheap house in good light. Number 5, Winslow. Yeah, that Winslow. The Eagles song, Standin' on the Corner. Tourist buses every weekend. But here's what the tourists never see. Walk 2 blocks north of that famous corner, past the painted flatbed Ford, past the stand-in on the corner park, and you hit a residential grid where entire streets have boarded windows. Faded paint. Yards full of tumbleweed. Winslow was founded in 1882 as a division point for the Atlantic and Pacific Railroad, which became the Santa Fe. And for almost 100 years, it was the biggest railroad town in Arizona. Fred Harvey's La Posada Hotel opened here in 1929. Mary Coulter designed it. Movie stars stayed there. The population peaked around 9,500 in the 1960s. Two things killed it. Interstate 40 bypassed Route 66 in 1979, and then the Santa Fe Railway shut its Winslow Division headquarters in 1994. Hundreds of jobs gone in a single year. Today, La Posada is still gorgeous. Restored, full of guests sipping wine while a freight train shakes the silver every 20 minutes, exactly the way it did in 1929. But 3 blocks north of that wine glass, a 1940s railroader's cottage with a collapsed porch is listed for less than a used Toyota. Realtor. Com regularly shows 30-plus homes under $100,000 in Winslow, with a steady handful under 50. The buyers? Retirees from California chasing low property taxes. Remote workers who want square footage. And here's my honest take. Winslow might be the best deal in this entire video for someone who actually wants neighbors and a coffee shop. Just don't tell the locals I said that. Speaking of locals, the towns we're heading into next? The locals aren't being polite about it anymore. Quick interruption, and I promise this is the only one. If you've made it this far, you already know the next 4 towns are going to be harder to look at than the first 3. Number 1 in particular, I almost didn't put it in this video. If you haven't subscribed yet, this is the moment. Because what's coming isn't just cheap real estate. It's a story about who America forgets, who America profits from, and what happens when the two cross paths in a desert town with a single stoplight. All right, back to it. Number 4, Globe. Globe was one of the richest mining camps in the American West. I want you to sit with that for a second. The Old Dominion mine alone pulled over 800 million pounds of copper out of the Pinal Mountains. The town was founded in 1875, first on silver, then copper, and by the 1920s, it had a population pushing 8,000. Brick, hotels, opera houses, the whole Western dream. Then 1931 happened. The Old Dominion shut down. Globe limped along on the Miami mines next door for a while, but the 1980s copper collapse gutted what was left. And then a 1983 flood ripped through the canyon and tore up downtown for good measure. Globe never came back to its peak. It's been hovering around 200 people ever since. Now here's where it gets interesting for our title. Globe's historic district is loaded with 1900 to 1920 minor cottages. Pressed tin ceilings, original wood floors, the works. And they're cheap. Realtor.com shows 13-plus homes under $50,000 in Globe right now. Fixer cottages start around $35,000. Livable bungalows around $75,000. Here's the catch the listings don't tell you. These houses have foundation issues and roof issues that no bank will finance, which means the only people who can actually buy them are people paying cash, which means retirees, which means outside money. Locals, the families who've been in Globe since the Old Dominion was running, can't compete with a 68-year-old from Mesa with a Schwab account. And in the middle of downtown sits the old 1910 Gila County Jail, stone walls, empty now. Locals still tell the story of the public hanging they staged in its courtyard in 1910. 3,000 people showed up to watch a man die. The gallows beam, some say, is still inside the building. Globe doesn't try to hide its history. It just doesn't have the money to clean it up. Number 3, Ajo. Drive west from Tucson into the Sonoran Desert, past the saguaros, past the heat shimmer, and you'll eventually hit a town built around a Spanish colonial plaza so white it almost hurts your eyes. That's Ajo, pronounced ajo, Spanish for garlic, named for a wild plant the Tohono O'odham used. Ajo was a master-planned company town. John Greenway opened the new Cornelia open-pit copper mine here in 1917, and Phelps Dodge built the whole town around it. The plaza, the church, the Grand Curly School, all in matching Spanish colonial revival. Population peaked around 7,000 in the 1950s and 60s. Then 1985 happened. After a brutal 14-month union strike and a global copper price collapse, Phelps Dodge shut the mine down. 90% of local jobs evaporated almost overnight. Within 5 years, the population dropped 40%. It now sits at 3,039. What's there today is genuinely strange. The plaza is restored. Palm trees, white stucco, the church bells still ringing. The Curley School got renovated in 2007 into 30 affordable artist-livered lofts, and a small arts colony bloomed out of it. Border Patrol has a huge presence here because Ajo is 43 miles from the Mexican border. And the real estate? Fixer bungalows from 40 grand. Restored homes between 90 and 180. Whole blocks of mine-era worker housing on the south side still abandoned, windows broken, doors swinging. The buyers are retirees, artists, federal agents, and Tucson cash investors, and they're bidding against each other for the same stock. The locals who grew up in Ajo, they can't keep up. Border Patrol agents on a federal salary will out-offer them every single time. But here's the part that stays with me. The mine pit, a mile and a half wide, 1,100 feet deep, is silent now. But Freeport McMoran still keeps the lights on at the old processing buildings. Why? Nobody really knows. And old miners drive up to the lookout at sunset and just stare into it. One of them told the local paper, it's like visiting a grave that's a mile wide. I read that quote 3 times when I first found it. I still don't have anything to add to it. Number 2. San Manuel. If Ajo is a town with a wound, San Manuel is a town with no reason to exist anymore, and it knows it. San Manuel was founded in 1953 by Magma Copper to house workers for what would become one of the largest underground copper mines in the world. The whole town was master planned. Identical ranch homes in geometric grids, a hospital, schools, parks, all built in 1 year, 1954. Peak population hit about 5,000 in the late 70s. Then BHP bought Magma in 1996, suspended operations in 1999. That single decision displaced 300 workers, closed the mine permanently in 2003, and demolished the smelter stack in 2007. That stack had been visible from every front porch in town. When they brought it down, an entire generation of San Manuel kids watched their skyline disappear. Today, most of the original homes are still standing. Most are even occupied. But block after block shows boarded windows. Zillow shows around 25 active listings. Realtor. Compegs the median around 174 grand, but homes under 50,000 show up constantly, especially the original 1953 worker ranches. The buyers, Tucson retirees 45 minutes away, Border Patrol. And speculators, because in 2024, a Canadian outfit called Faraday Copper announced intent to acquire BHP's San Manuel property, which means the mine might reopen, which means the cash buyers swooping in right now might be sitting on something, and which means the families who've lived there for 3 generations are watching outsiders placed bets on their town's resurrection. Here's the detail that knocked me sideways. The mine shaft, over a mile deep, is still down there, flooded with water now. For years after the closure, BHP left the pumps running to keep the water out. Locals say on quiet nights you could hear them humming. Then one day, the pumps stopped, and the water came up. Slowly, silently, a town built in a single year, killed in a single decision. And every house in it for less than the down payment on a Phoenix condo. Yeah, it's that bad. Number 1. Hayden. All right, slow down with me here. This is the one. Hayden, Arizona. Population 509, down from over 2,000 at its peak in 1920. That's a 75% loss of human beings from a single American town. And the number I opened this video with, the one that stops people scrolling, is still the headline. According to Data USA citing 2023 census data, the median property value in Hayden is $37,400, the middle of the market. Half the homes are worth less than that. There is no other incorporated town in Arizona where this is true. Hayden was founded in 1909 by Charles Hayden as a smelter town for the Ray, Consolidated Copper Company. Kennecott took it over. Then Asarco in 1986. And for a brief shining moment after World War II, Life magazine named Hayden the best small town in America. Picture that, a magazine cover. A whole nation looking at this strip of clapboard houses by the Gila River and seeing the American dream. Now look at what's there today. Boarded buildings up and down Main Street. Median household income, $29,700. 30% of residents living below the poverty line. Sales prices on what little inventory exists, landing in the $30,000 to $60,000 range. And looming over all of it, a 1,000-foot smokestack. The tallest structure for 50 miles in any direction. The thing that built the town. The thing that poisoned the town. Because here's what nobody puts in the real estate listings. In 2008, fed-up Hayden residents, people who'd watched their kids breathe lead and arsenic and sulfur dioxide for decades, sued ASARCO. And they won. The EPA had already caught the smelter pumping lead emissions at 2 to 3 times the federal Clean Air Act limit. The lawsuit was supposed to be justice. Each plaintiff received approximately $10,000. $10,000. Not enough to move a family anywhere in Arizona. Not enough to start over. Not enough to do anything except sit in your poisoned house and wait for the next thing to happen. That's the trap. And that's why the locals are furious. Because right now, retirees from Phoenix and Tucson are showing up with 40 grand in cash. Cash they made on a Phoenix house that doubled in value during the pandemic. And they're walking off with these homes in a single afternoon. They're not Californians yet. They're not investors yet. They're regular 60-something Arizonans who did the math and figured out they can live on Social Security if their housing cost is 0. And honestly, I don't blame them. That's the worst part. The buyers aren't villains. They're just people who can read a Zillow map. But the people who stayed, through the layoffs, through the strikes, through the lawsuit, through the smelter hiatus in 2020, they're not selling because they want to. They're selling because they have to. One Hayden resident told a regional reporter it feels like watching your hometown become a ghost town in real time. And the smokestack? It still stands. Quiet now. The smelter went on hiatus in 2020 after pollution penalties and EPA settlements stacked up too high. But the parent company, Grupo Mexico, has hinted at restarting it, which means the air might get bad again. Which means the buyers showing up with cashier's checks might find out the hard way what the locals already know. That's Hayden, a town with a tombstone for a skyline. If even one of these towns made you feel something, curiosity, sadness, the weird itch to load up a car and just go, drop the town name in the comments so I know which one hit you hardest. Mine is Hayden. It's been Hayden since I started researching this. Share this video with the one friend who's always talking about disappearing off the grid. They need to see number 1 before they make any decisions. And the subscribe button is right there. You already know what to do. One last thing before I go. Somewhere in Arizona tonight, a retired couple is sitting on a porch they paid 40 grand for, watching the sun go down over a smokestack. And 3 doors down, a family who's lived on that street for 60 years is packing up. Both things are true. That's the country we live in now.